working at the voluntary redundancy about 18 months ago. It's a long story. We can talk about it over several pints. But and over the last 18 months, I've been fortunate enough to be working with Tom and a number of individuals in presenting and talking about evidence-based practice in schools. And what I want to try and do today is basically four things. Look at how the UK government is trying to support evidence-informed teaching profession, provide a definition of evidence-based practice and address a number of misconceptions.
Oh, it's here.
It's there.
It's there all along.
No, it's hands away.
What do you want to do then?
Advance a slide.
Oh, I don't know if it's...
No,
no,
do
it's
something
do
to use
that.
the mouse, I think.
Sorry?
That's the projector one,
Yeah, I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically look at that and then provide you with a self-assessment tool in terms of so you can self-assess your own practice as evidence-based practitioner. Now, to be fair, I was at Wellington yesterday and I think it's fair to say the white paper probably isn't going anywhere. The Secretary of State probably is, and there's probably going to be a lot of other legislation which is going to get prioritised. Okay, I think we can safely say that. So I'll just, but that said, it's briefly worth looking at that white paper. Before I do that, I just want to outline the underpinning theory of action, okay, behind this presentation, which is basically teachers and school leaders routinely make decisions and judgments about what they're going to do. Okay. Often those decisions are based on evidence of a range of types. Using only a little evidence that is not relevant or valid is likely to lead to poor decisions and poor outcomes for students and staff. Using more relevant and more valid evidence is likely to produce better decisions and outcomes for staff. So that's what underpins, that's the theory of action that's going to underpin this session. Okay. So let's quickly look at the white paper. If you put it into a PDF reader, you get 84 references to evidence. You get 24 references to evidence-based, and you get 3 references to evidence-informed. Okay. So within the paper, with the white paper itself, there's lots of reference to evidence-based, evidence-informed practice. One of the challenges is they don't really define those terms that well. But that said, the government was intending to improve evidence by doing effectively 3 things. Effectively sort of initial teacher training and CPD is evidence-based. Increasing teachers' access to high-quality evidence and making sure there's increasing the volume of high-quality evidence. So the government effectively embedded evidence into programmes, increasing access to high-quality evidence and increasing volume. My own view about the second point is that's a necessary but not sufficient condition. You need to be able to ask the right question if we can access the evidence, but that's another story, and we'll come to that shortly. So, what we're going to do now is provide a working definition of evidence-based practice. This is not the normal definition that you'll find in some of the educational literature because it comes from medicine and health. But first, let's look at the definitions of evidence-based teaching which you can find in some of the literature. And in that report in 2015, they used these 2 definitions of evidence-based, this definition of evidence-based teaching and this definition of evidence-informed practice. My own personal view is that definition of evidence-based teaching is a complete misreading of the evidence-based practice movement. It's got a complete misreading, and it reflects, in my view, a lack of scholarly activity in researching what was done in medicine in the 1990s. But let's move on. So let's look at this definition of evidence-based medicine, which is where this evidence-based movement comes from. And this is a definition by David Sackett, the late David Sackett, pioneer in evidence-based medicine, article in 1996. Okay, saying what evidence-based medicine is. Evidence-based medicine is the conscientious, explicit and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patients. A practice of evidence-based medicine means integrating clinical expertise with the best available external clinical evidence from systematic research. So you can actually argue that there's no need to have this definition of evidence-informed. If you actually go back to the roots, evidence-based practice is actually evidence-informed. It's the same stuff. Okay. And right from the very beginning, medical practitioners have been emphasising the role of practitioner expertise. What they also emphasise as well, it's a joint decision-making process with patients, and what really matters, well, not really matters, what also matters, are the patient's values as well. So it's not just about what the research says, it's what you as an expert, clinical clinician says, but also what your patients think. And that's got some quite interesting implications for evidence-based education, because we would need to engage much more with pupils and other stakeholders, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So, and then what we're going to do now is just look at, very briefly, there was a conference on defining a curriculum on evidence-based practice for health professionals, which is a Sicily statement, which is being used by the Centre of Evidence-Based Management to come up with a definition of evidence-based practice. Okay, and this definition, and this is the definition of evidence-based practice provided by the Centre of Evidence-Based Management, which draws upon the Sicily statement of evidence-based practice in the health industry. So just let you have a look at that for a moment.
These slides, will they be available?
From all good bookshops, yes. they'll be available. Yeah, they'll be available. I'll send them to Stephen, but also on my blog you can access. I'll put a link on to the slides as well. So notice here, there's some key words. I'll just go over here to do this. It's about decisions. So it's about practice. It's not necessarily about generalising research knowledge. So evidence-based practice isn't the same as research. It's about making practical decisions. It's conscientious in as far as that you recognise you've got your own biases, and you might be looking for evidence to support your own opinion. Actually, one of the challenges you've got is to be almost counterintuitive and challenge your cognitive biases. So part of the process of being evidence-based is to actually challenge your existing assumption about what you think you know. The second thing is it needs to be explicit. There needs to be a clear theory of action about what you've done. If I do this, then under these circumstances, this will happen. And basically, it needs to be judicious. In a sense, it's about judgments. Okay, it's about making good judgments, which hopefully lead to better outcomes for your pupils and your staff. But the point I want to make very quickly, okay, is it emphasises that evidence comes from multiple sources. Okay, it's not just research evidence; it comes from multiple sources. And indeed, I apologise for walking across the screen. Okay, we'll come back to those questions in a minute. Okay. It comes from multiple sources. So the evidence that you use to inform your decision making comes from scientific research findings, it comes from your professional experience and judgment, it comes from your colleagues, your pupils, parents, community values and concerns, and it comes from school data. Okay. So the evidence that you're using to make these conscientious, explicit and judicious decisions comes from 4 sources. Okay. So, then if I go back to this notion, okay, well, I'll talk about in terms of this curriculum for the evidence-based practitioner. Well, in the health sector, they argue that that curriculum could be based around those 6 questions. 6 elements. You translate a practical issue into an answerable question, and that is a skill in itself. You then acquire the evidence. Okay. You then appraise the evidence, work out where it's got any sense. You then pull the evidence together into a coherent whole, which then informs your practice and your decision making, which then hopefully leads to better outcomes, having, in the process, evaluated the process by which you've gone through that. Okay. So, for me, that provides an outline on a curriculum for evidence-based practice. Ask questions, provide information, appraise it, add it all together, apply it, then assess how well you've done it, and assess the outcome of that. Now, please note, okay, that it just increases the likelihood of favourable outcomes. It doesn't guarantee that this stuff's going to work. It just, hopefully, that goes back to my theory of action. By doing all this and doing it well, you hopefully get a better outcome. Any questions so far, apart from cleaning up the slides? Does it make sense? Okay. But this definition is quite a lot different from some of the definitions that get banded around in education, where it's actually, we're talking about it being research-based practice. So what I want to do now is basically now articulate just 3 misconceptions, some of the most common misconceptions there are about evidence-based practice. Firstly, evidence-based practice ignores the teacher's expertise. That goes back to that definition of evidence-based teaching. It's a misconception. Evidence-based practice, and there's a fundamental component, clinical practitioner expertise. It doesn't ignore their expertise, but the teacher and head teacher's skills and knowledge. The second thing is that evidence-based practice is the same as research-based practice. Now, this is a really common misconception, because research-based practice is just a subset of evidence-based practice. And it's an incomplete subset of evidence-based practice, because research-based practice is just one of those 4 sources of evidence. I had a bit of a discussion with an officer from the EEF this week about this issue, and they don't get that distinction. It's quite scary, really. And the third thing is, evidence-based practice involves teachers undertaking research. It involves teachers engaging in inquiry to answer those 6 questions, but it's not so that you can make better decisions on the ground in practice. It's not about you as teachers trying to create generalisable knowledge that's used outside of your context. Okay. Evidence-based practice is predominantly about changes in practice. Okay. It's not about contributing to a wider understanding of the world. There is a subtle difference, there's a big difference between the two, but the emphasis on evidence-based practice is in here. And my own view, for what it's worth, is that this misconception causes a lot of damage. Causing a lot of damage. You don't want to be doing research, you want to be doing inquiry, and the inquiry you want to be doing, okay, relates to those 6 questions. And that gives you what Dylan Williams talks about as a process of disciplined inquiry. Okay. Now, I'm taking a certain stance about methodology, epistemology, ontology, but we won't necessarily go into those now. So, if you want more information about this, you can go into my blog, Evidence-Based Educational Leadership, and there's a handbook which covers those misconceptions, most of what I've done so far. Those misconceptions and a number of others can be accessible in this handbook. It's in Google. You can download it as either a Word or PDF document. It's about 5,000 words. It's written for both teachers and school leaders, and it's free. Apart from printing costs and the internet connection and whatever. So it's free. So have a look at that. Have a look at that. So now let's look at this curriculum for evidence-based practitioners. Okay. Now, one of the key things I think is important from these sessions is that you're given a takeaway, something that you can use in the classroom or in your own reflection on Monday, or this today on the train on the way home, or tomorrow night, or Monday, or something you can share with schools, with colleagues in your schools. So this next section And I'm conscious of what time I've got to finish.
You've got
15 minutes.
20 minutes. Then.
Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go through this session a bit quickly, okay? Okay, so again, 20, yeah. So basically what we're arguing is that you want to create this curriculum of evidence-based practitioners, you need to support practitioners to do those 6 things. Ask the question, search and retrieve it, appraise it, aggregate it, apply it, evaluate performance. That's the outline of your curriculum for evidence-based practice. So what we're going to do now, okay, is that we're going to dive down into this aspect of the curriculum and look at a particular technique to help you ask better questions. Now I need to emphasise about this technique, this is just one way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, but I want to share that with you to give you a structure, so hopefully you've got something to take away from this afternoon. Okay, so let's look at the translation of uncertainty into an answerable question. Okay. One of the big problems that teachers have is teachers are great at asking general questions, but they're not particularly great at asking focused and specific questions that then help drive you towards the evidence. And let me explain. Okay, so you can have background questions. Now, background questions, okay, are just a who, and a what, and how, and a when. So, for example, how does homework improve student achievement? It doesn't say what homework, it doesn't say what students. It doesn't say what type of achievement. What are the benefits of e-learning? When is the best time to give student diagnostic tests? Who is best placed to undertake performance reviews? And it's an interesting one, and it's because some evidence suggests certain personality types are better placed to give performance reviews. There's also an argument you shouldn't do them at all, but that's another story. Okay? And where can you find examples of effective flipped learning? Okay? Those are background questions. Okay? A foreground question, though, asks a far more specific question about a particular action, intervention, or innovation. So an example would be, does 24/7 access to iPads as compared to Chromebooks improve the timely completion of homework tasks? Okay. So we've got a couple of interventions going on there, Chromebooks, iPads, and we've got an outcome that we're looking for, which is the timely completion, not the quality of it, but the timely completion of homework tasks. But it still could be slightly better, that question. It still could be slightly better. So, does written feedback on homework tasks as compared to oral feedback lead to improved student achievement? Again, a more focused question, but could be better. Okay. So, what we're going to do now is look at a format for questioning for your translated and answerable question from the health sector. And we're going to use something called the PICO format. Every time I mention PICO, I think about PIFCO or whatever it is that used to be sold at Woolworths. So basically, this is straight over the air. I know.
This isn't the Woolworths generation.
Yeah, no, I went to I did a staff meet some time ago and did a joke about the dark side of the moon and stuff like that, and I now realise that a lot of the staff involved weren't even born when the record came out. So basically, the PICO format has this structure. So it starts off with the P. I don't like associating pupils with problems, but you get the idea. How would you describe the group of pupils or problems? So, who is it that you're interested in? Okay. What are you possibly thinking of doing with those pupils? Okay, to address that top line issue. What else could you do? And what are the outcomes and the effects that you're looking for? Okay. So who are they? What are you going to do? What could you do? What else could you do? And what are the outcomes? Because what that then gives you is a framework to go and look for the evidence, which will then help you make a decision. You say what this is. So, here's an example of the PICO structure. So you've got year 11 students, they require additional learning support. How does the provision of one-to-one support compared with group support affect achievement rates? So pupils, problem, the intervention, the comparator, and the outcomes. Okay. Now this is quite quantitative, but there's something called a PO model, which is the problem, the experience that people have, and the outcomes, which is a qualitative approach. So you can then, which is something I'll be writing about shortly. I thought that was some tap on the typewriter, but that's hailstones. Okay, here's the one. For pupils aged 15 to 16, year 11, taking GCSEs who receive written feedback on their homework tasks, the intervention, how well do they achieve compared to pupils who receive only oral feedback? And I know it's a bit of a false distinction, and it's not just going to be like that, but I'm just using it to stretch to make the argument. Okay. So, you are now going to try for yourselves. Okay. Right. In pairs, and I think you might need to, yeah, haven't got pairs. Okay, I'll work. Yeah, in pairs, I want you to think about a situation in your school, in your practice or elsewhere, where you could usefully apply the PICO format. Okay? And we'll just give you 5 minutes to have a go. All I have to do is in pairs, and see if you can come up with a question. The question I'm now going to pose is, anybody prepared to share their PICO? Is anybody willing to share a PICO question?
We can share pie.
Okay, we'll share pie, yeah, okay. Steak pie, apple pie, chicken.
Whatever. We're looking at the crossover in terms of achievement of white British boys and pupil premium. So those boys who are white British and pupil premium. And
what strategies could be adopted to use the premium to get the outcomes that...
That's right,
yeah.
that's right. And so we could look at curriculum, quality of teaching, the primary curriculum as that moves through, all of those things. And one of the interventions we were talking about, which is the point we were at, which was student voice, and actually that kind of student voice and affiliation.
So you identified white English working class pupils.
British.
Still. British, yes. I tell you, my wife's Italian, and I live in Jersey, which is outside the EU, it's outside the UK, the Crown Dependency, and she's the Italian consul. She's been bombarded today with people trying to apply for Italian passports.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting dynamic. But moving on, I feel like I'm intrigued on private grief.
Well, you are.
I am. Yeah, so basically you've identified the first bit, but then what sometimes happens is that you can identify the problem, you can identify the outcomes, but then you've got to go through that inquiry process to actually get these two, who you end up with. So sometimes it's not just you start off with this and go look at the evidence, sometimes you start with that, and then going to have to look at the evidence to find the interventions that you want to compare. Okay? And we were just chatting, if you don't want me to share that conversation, we were talking about the CPD requirements of staff compared to, of experienced staff compared to trainee staff. And the point I was making is sort of along the lines of, with trainee staff, you probably need to give them rubrics, how to do things, short checklists and processes, whereas with experienced staff, you've got to unpack their rubrics and find out what are the processes that they're doing. They've already got them, they just don't know what they're just not articulating them. Right, any other obstacles?
Ours was, does implementing a full EYFS free-flow environment in Key Stage 1 lead to higher attainment in core subjects at the end of Key Stage 1 sets?
Compared to
formal learning environment.
Yeah, okay. So basically, now you may want to sort of split that down, but basically you've got some pupils, you've got two interventions, you've got some outcomes. One more.
Does, in regard to Year 10 history students, does directed task feedback as opposed to written target feedback resulting in greater attainment.
Yeah, and what you're looking to do is you're looking to find in search evidence to explore those. Now, the thing about this PICO format, this has got actually some incredibly powerful ways of embedded research into your school's culture. What would your your departmental development plan look like if it focused on 3 PICO interventions? What would it look like? Because quite often you do departmental development plan, you do loads of stuff, you can't work out what's called what. Not you can probably work out that way, but you can have a lot going on. So a PICO format actually provides you with a structure for your departmental development plan. There's also an argument that says actually the PICO format might provide you with something for you end of course of doing appraisal in terms of giving yourself a task. So there's an argument. Now I can see that, but I actually think you need to have stuff sat underneath it to be able to do it. So that's for yourself. Now, the next few slides we won't do, but they'll be on the blog. Okay, because this basically gives you a self-assessment of how well you're doing as an evidence-based practitioner, and we'll just do one. So, what we need to do is look at those 5 questions. For the 5 questions as a whole, not the individual questions, but effectively for the slide as a whole, I want you to rank your current performance. With 1 over here, with 1 being over here, not very good at all. No evidence-based practice, like this type of question setting going on. And 10 being over here. Okay? And put the first number that comes into your head. 1, nothing's going on. 10, fantastic, you're doing all those things. And put the first number into your head. Done it? Right, okay. All put your hands up. Well, you all must have put at least 1. Okay, who was 2 or higher? 3 or higher? 4 or higher? 5 or higher? 6 or higher? 7 or higher? 8? Yeah? Okay. Now what I want you to do, and I'm going to give you something for your train journey home. Okay? Or your car journey home, or your bike journey, or your walking home. Okay. I want you to think about one thing that you could do that if I came back into this session in a year's time, okay, the score that you would have given yourself was 1 point higher. So you might score yourself as a 5. What would you do to score yourself as 6? What step would you be, actually this way, what step would you be taking to score yourself as a 6? If you score yourself as a 2, what step would you be taking? What small step would it be? And that small step could be go on my blog. Oh, yeah. I shouldn't be saying stuff referendums on this. So it could be, but what small step are you going to do? Are you going to have a conversation with somebody? Are you going to talk to somebody about using this as a structure for your departmental plans? What small step would it be? Okay. And think about doing it. Because for me, I'm increasingly obvious for you that actually what we need to engage in is habit formation at a micro level. It's not big ticket CPD events like this, although these are great and a lot of Tom's effort, I do travel around the world. They're fantastic, but actually in terms of making a difference to your practice, it's that finding little things that you can repeat and do on a day-by-day basis, which become habits, which you then add to more habits as a disciplined inquiry. And that's what it's all about. Now the next set of slides sort of look at the other questions and self-audit, but we're just going to skip those. So then, hopefully at the end of the session when I've done that, outlined UK government approach, or what it was to be, provide a definition, addressing misconceptions, outline very briefly the curriculum, and you've got a self-assessment checklist which you can have a look. But if I was going to leave one last message with you, it's this. Do simple things well. Ask good questions. Make the most of the current estimated evidence. Develop your skills incrementally. Apply what you find out to improve your practice and evaluate what you do. In doing so, you will end up having a far more interesting and enjoyable career, because this is a career-long process. Okay? More importantly, it will make positive differences to the lives of pupils and colleagues. Remember, you are teachers wishing to improve rather than researchers seeking to improve. What you're about is making better decisions using evidence on a day-to-day basis which lead to better outcomes for your pupils and your colleagues. You're not trying to generate generalisable knowledge to share with the rest of the world. You're about making better decisions. Thank you.